Hi, welcome back to the 11 Step Meditation Foundations course. This lesson is Step 1 in Meditation. I'm really excited to get into this. First, I want to go over a little bit of the Serenity Meditation that we walked through at the end of the last session. How was your experience with that Serenity Meditation? Of course, we can't answer any questions, but if you want to send questions to me or post them in the Facebook page that we have for the 11stepmeditation.org, glad to help answer them. I think it's interesting to take something that we use every day, a serenity prayer, and learn how to turn it into affirmations. We'll see what thoughts and the power of thoughts have in our world. And it's a great meditation to do anytime. I mean, it's something that you have memorized. So just take that and use the basic techniques that you're gathering here and then guide yourself through a meditation by using each of those lines or each segment of the prayer. And it can be short or it can be longer. So now you have a meditation in your toolbox. And so that you can see that the meditation is starting to help us detach from unmanageable thoughts and emotions. Let's dive in and see how this happens. Okay, step one in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is we are powerless over alcohol and our lives have become unmanageable. When I really started looking at this, I noticed that when I was teaching meditation or learning to meditate myself, that really maybe the root of that powerlessness over alcohol and how our lives would become unmanageable was that we are actually powerless over our thoughts and our emotions, and they are unmanageable. We often let them rule our lives. We believe them. They're always going. We don't know how to turn them off. They don't always give us good information or the right feeling at the moment. So if we can approach step one from how do we detach from our thoughts and our emotions that are unmanageable, then we can have success through the rest of the steps. So we're going to dive in and take a little deeper look at this. So the first thing is thoughts are things. We think thoughts in our mind. We communicate those thoughts through electrical impulses, through our neural networks. We communicate those thoughts through electricity that also extend out past our body. We also communicate those thoughts through magnetic energy that our heart is radiating out. So when we think a thought, we have to be really careful because we're communicating not only with our entire body, we're communicating with the rest of the world. With that said, I like to think of my favorite little Peanuts comic strip character here, Pigpen. I feel like Pigpen quite a bit. But if you notice when he was walking around in the comics, he would have this dust cloud around him. In some way, we are all putting out this dust cloud. We are putting out an energy cloud that radiates about us, that turns our thoughts into things. So what are we communicating with our thoughts? What does your energy cloud look like? If we're ruminating about negativity or the past or in the future and we're worrying about things or we're having resentments and thinking negative thoughts about people, how do you think that communicates energetically to the people in the world around us? It's really powerful. So we really have to take a look at that because they are unmanageable. And so meditation is going to help us learn how to detach from these unmanageable thoughts. So now I'd like to tee up a video for you that I think highlights this and a scientific study that Dr. Emoto did that shows the power of thought on water. Now this is a clip, it's a YouTube clip that was taken from a movie called What the Bleep in 2004. It helps resonate with you in the way that it did with me.
Just tell me where you are. Good. But hurry, will you, please? Because these models are giving me a headache.
10 minutes.
Subway exhibit comes to us from Japan and Mr. Masuro Emoto. Mr. Emoto became terribly interested in the molecular structure of water and what affects it. Now, water is the most receptive of the four elements. Mr. Emoto thought perhaps it would respond to non-physical events. So he set up a series of studies, applied mental stimuli, and photographed it with a dark field microscope. This first picture is a picture of water from the Fujiwara Dam. And this picture is the same water after receiving a blessing from a Zen Buddhist monk. Now, in this next series of pictures, Mr. Emoto printed out words, taped them to bottles of distilled water, and left them out overnight. This first photograph is a picture of the pure distilled water, just the essence of itself. These subsequent photographs, as you can see, are each different. This is the chi of love. And we move along here to thank you. And you can see where he taped that to this bottle here. But if you read Japanese, you already knew that. Now, Mr. Emoto speaks of the thought or intent being the driving force in all of this. The science of how that actually affects the molecules is unknown, except to the water molecules, of course. And it's really fascinating when you keep in mind that 90% of our bodies are water.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? If thoughts can do that to water, imagine what our thoughts can do to us.
Pretty powerful, isn't it? That video that shows the power of thought, even written thought on water. Very graphic. I know in my experience that the universe is giving me what I ask for. And I'm not necessarily asking it in questions like in a prayer. I'm asking it in my thoughts. God has set up this big giving machine, and whatever I'm thinking, feeling, and doing is communicating to the universe, and it doesn't know that it's not what I really want. I want something better, but that's what I'm radiating out to the universe, and so that it just attracts that. So as I'm hitting my bottom and having stinking thinking and just spiraling down, getting worse and worse in my thinking and my behavior, no wonder it helps me rush to my bottom. When I crash, all of a sudden I have to wake up. And this is the beginning of the spiritual awakening that we have in step 12. But I have to wake up from that negativity from the bottom and start looking around and changing my life. And the steps guide us through that. And meditation helped me with that. This is a picture of my brain. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but there's a little squirrel kind of in a cage on there, and we think thoughts. Our brain is designed to think, and it's designed to spew out thoughts, and a lot of these are unconscious thinking habits. And it's noticing things, it's noticing more things than we're aware of. And then it's also playing old tapes. It's ruminating, it's bringing up the past. I think if you're listening to this and you're not an addict, you can always identify that everybody, at least in this day and age, is addicted to thinking and feeling. It's happening all the time, and our attention span is shorter and shorter. So not only am I addicted to alcohol, but I'm addicted to thinking, which is unmanageable and may be part of the root of my problem. So what do I do with this? We became foster parents 3 years ago, and in the foster training, we learned a lot about child development and the power of trauma, even prenatal and year 1 and 2. And I really identified it, and I noticed that the things that we learned about our daughter when she was having trauma and being in a terrible environment, that affects the brain. The brain is mapping its neural pathways, it's creating its thinking and feeling habits even before we're out of the womb and right after. So when there's traumatic events going on, our brain is afraid, and it's creating these defenses that we then have to later overcome. And I was in that class, I really identified, I thought, I know I experienced trauma, probably low grade trauma. Maybe we all did. In some ways, it doesn't matter. We just are. And we have these defects of character. We have these unmanageable thoughts and emotions. So let's move on and let's do the steps and let's meditate and heal from it. But just know that we're hardwired. Those neural pathways are hardwired. And neuroplasticity, which I mentioned in another section, means that we can change our programming. We can change the hardwired to be improved. And the most effective way to do that is through meditation. It's just like if you're training to get into shape, physical shape, we're training our brain and our thoughts and our emotions. So we set up this habit of doing meditation every day. And then we redirect our energies, we reprogram our mind, and we start taking outer positive actions, working the steps at the same time, and that we're reprogramming ourselves on the interior. And that combination, that package of work is really powerful and really help your program. Okay, one of the descriptions of mind is monkey mind. I think you may have heard of it, but this is just a graphic portrayal of what thoughts can do. We have one thought and all of a sudden have another one, and they keep popping up like monkeys, and they're all fighting for my attention. And then there's things at work that I have to do, and then there's my family demands, and then, oh, what about that, all the things that you messed up years ago? What about you? What are you going to do in the future? What about your job? How are you going to pay your bills? What are you going to do? Pretty soon we just have all these monkeys rattling around in our brain. Meditation is going to give us a strategy to help with these monkeys. These monkeys are unmanageable, really. So I really like the phrase, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And it comes from a lot of different people. I've tracked it down to Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who was a priest and an archaeologist. I think we are spiritual beings. We have a spiritual nature. We also are physical beings. But there is a sense inside us of something more than just my brain. I think we sense this, and this is where our connection to higher power really helps us develop that. But I've noticed that the root of my spiritual malady is that I identify with my ego. A friend of mine says, my ego is not my amigo. It is the identity that we are attached to. It's a story that we tell ourselves. And I like to frame this in the perspective that that's my false self. That's not really the real person that I am, because my ego in this false self is that I have this sense of feeling separate and alone. And I think we hear about this in the rooms, this separate and alone. I didn't get the playbook, no one gave me the rules of life. And actually that is part of the damage that is done to us often early by trauma, because the brain, the section that helps us map and connect to other people and to higher power, it doesn't develop right. It can be changed, but there's almost hardwired to help us feel this separate and aloneness. So we have to put this in perspective. That is not everything that I am. I am not just my ego. I'm not just my false self. It's the incorrect perspective. So we're going to learn some new perspectives, and we're going to practice that. Meditation does is we can detach from that false self. We're going to detach from our thoughts and our feelings, those unmanageable ones. We're going to connect with this higher self, our spirit self. There's a lot of different ways you can look at this. It's higher self, spirit self, soul, the true me. There's a lot of different perspectives on this. I just called it spirit self to capture and to combine all those different ideas through everybody's different sense of higher power into one concept. It's a little bit of step three paradigm here, but the director. When we're feeling separate and alone, and our thoughts and our emotions are unmanageable, it feels like we're carrying the weight of the world around us. We have to direct everything. We have to force everything. Everything is being done to us, right? And as we have this stinking thinking and spiral down, it eventually gets to be too much. That's why we drink and use, or we do whatever we're using to cover up this feeling of separateness, of feeling inadequate, feeling alone. And so I'd like to show you a different paradigm. This is the spirit self paradigm. So as you can see, we have our false self. It's not our true self, But it is part of us. We need our ego, but we just have to have the right perspective on it. Then this other person that's observing the false self is our spirit self. Now we get to practice this. You've already practiced this in the meditations that we've done. When you detach from your thoughts, when you're watching those thoughts float by, and you're deciding not to reach out and grab them, you're acknowledging them, but not grabbing them. Who is doing the acknowledging? Who is doing the viewing? Our mind is kicking up thoughts. It wants our attention. It wants this negative energy that we're going to put out and feed it. That's false self. That's ego streaming across. Spirit self is the observer. So we're learning two great spiritual concepts here. One, detachment. We can detach from the false self. We can detach from those unmanageable thoughts and emotions. And we can learn to become the observer. So then things aren't being done to me. I can observe them. And the great thing about meditation is, in this spiritual aerobic workout, is I can practice this in meditation. It's like I go to the gym and I'm working out, and then I go on my day and I try to use those muscles and those skills outside. The same with meditation. I'm practicing this relationship. I'm practicing detachment. I'm practicing observing. I'm practicing connecting higher power in this meditation. And so it's preparing me for as I go out into the world for the rest of the day. Chuck C., New Pair of Glasses. I love that book. This is a diagram that he has in there. And this shows his perspective. And I think it's really similar. So you see Chuck, the little stick man outside the line. He's feeling separate and alone. He's got his ego, the line up and down, separating him from life, good, and God. So the ego, he even states the feeling of conscious separation. Life, good, and God is the universe and everything else. And the human race is within that. But we, even though we're in there, we have this perception that we're not. That is the unmanageable thoughts and emotions. And he calls this the golden key to understanding this. So how do we move from outside on the opposite side of the ego line into the circle with life, good, and God? Staying sober, not drinking or using. Whatever it is I'm addicted to, giving that up. Getting into groups. Working the steps. Cleaning up the clutter. This puts us squarely into the center with life, good, and God. This is what he wrote. When the ego is gone, you wake up right in the middle of the circle, and now you're apart, not apart from life, good, God. There is no life apart from God. God is life, and we are alive, so God is that which we are. We're on the beginning of a spiritual awakening. That's what we do. That's our 12-step goal, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And I started studying spiritual awakenings, and I noticed that there's some real similarities. And so I'm going to use someone as an example of a spiritual awakening. So let's listen to the audio here.
Until my 30th year, I lived in a state of almost continuous anxiety, interspersed with periods of suicidal depression. Feels now as if I'm talking about some past lifetime, or somebody else's life. One night, not long after my 29th birthday, I woke up in the early hours with a feeling of absolute dread. I had woken up with such a feeling many times before, but this time it was more intense than it had ever been. The silence of the night, the vague outlines of the furniture in the dark room, the distant noise of a passing train. Everything felt so alien, so hostile, and so utterly meaningless that it created me a deep loathing of the world. The most loathsome thing of all, however, was my own existence. What was the point in continuing to live with this burden of misery? Why carry on with this continuous struggle? I could feel that a deep longing for annihilation, for non-existence, was now becoming much stronger than the instinctive desire to continue to live. I cannot live with myself any longer. This was the thought that kept repeating itself in my mind. I can't live with myself any longer. Then, suddenly, I became aware of what a peculiar thought it was. Am I one or two? If I cannot live with myself, there must be two of me, the I and the self that I cannot live with. Maybe, I thought, only one of them is real. I was so stunned by this strange realization that my mind stopped. I was fully conscious, but there were no more thoughts. Then, I felt drawn into what seemed like a vortex of energy. It was a slow movement at first, and then it accelerated. I was gripped by an intense fear, and my body started to shake. I heard the words, "Resist nothing," as if spoken inside my chest. I could feel myself being sucked into a void. It felt as if the void was inside myself, rather than outside. Suddenly, there was no more fear, and I let myself fall into that void. I have no recollection of what happened after that. I was awakened by the chirping of a bird outside the window. I had never heard such a sweet sound. My eyes were still closed, and I saw the image of a precious diamond. Yes, if a diamond could make a sound, this is what it would be like. I opened my eyes. The first light of dawn was filtering through the curtains. Without any thought, I felt, I knew, that there was infinitely more to light than we realize. That soft luminosity filtering through the curtains was love itself. Tears came into my eyes. I got up and walked around the room. I recognized the room and yet knew that I had never truly seen it before. Everything was fresh and pristine, as if it had just come into existence. I picked up things, a pencil, an empty bottle, marveling at the beauty and aliveness of it all. That day, I walked around the city in utter amazement at the miracle of life on earth, as if I had just been born into this world.
That was a reading that I had done from The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. It's a great book. I learned a lot from it. Do you see how the pattern is? And I think I can see this certainly in my life. I have to hit a bottom, even in sobriety when I'm hitting an emotional bottom or another bottom, something I need to work on. My spirit self gets my attention by creating pain. And then I shift perspective. I see things in a different light. And then I wake up and I'm able to shift and let go of that past. And we can actually practice this process in meditation. So we don't always have to hit a bottom. We can work on it while we're in meditation. Okay, we're going to do a step one meditation, your inner spiritual workout. I think we've already been going over the basics, but just a strong foundation. So let's go over them again. So we begin by focusing on our breath. And as you get distracted, just gently bring your attention back to your breath. A couple different breathing exercises. You can breathe in and you can follow your breath, follow it as it comes in, feel how it feels throughout your body, and then follow it going out. And then detach and watch your thoughts float by. Try not to grab and hold on to them. But if you do, and you catch yourself, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm thinking. Go ahead and let go of them. Forgive yourself for doing that because that's what we've done all our lives. And then just get right back to the meditation. You start by focusing your breath. Pick up with the guided meditation wherever it's left you. We're using intentions as mantras to one, give us something to concentrate on, two, the power of thought and the power of energy. If we're repeating positive things over and over, we start to become that and we start to live that and we start to embody that. So that's the programming, the reprogramming part of the intentions that we're doing. And then just be gentle with yourself. It's practice. And the more we practice, the better we get, but it's all in the practice. Okay? There is no perfect meditation and there's no bad meditation. They're all good. So we're going to use one of the guided meditations on the Spirit Step 1 meditation CD that I created about 10 years ago. Hazelton's been selling it since then. I'm blessed that it's been able to help a lot of people. Just glad to take this to the new level in this course. So again, the audio guided meditation is going to be right below the video. Once you finish this, go ahead and click on that. It's going to be about 16 minutes long. So I hope you enjoy it. Again, it'll be guided. There'll be some great piano music in the background, and hope you enjoy it. Now I'd like to take a few minutes and quickly summarize what we've gone over in this step one. First, thoughts are things. Energy, chemically, magnetically, and through light, we communicate our thoughts with ourselves and with our environment around us and with the universe. So we need to be careful with our thoughts. And we are hardwired early on with these thinking and feeling habits that are unmanageable, that are imperfect, that can be improved to help us. We are addicted to thinking and feeling. We've identified ourselves for most of our lives with our ego or our false self. And we can begin to wake up spiritually by learning to change our perspective on this. We have a spiritual nature, our spirit self, that we can reconnect to through meditation. And I relax and I let go. This is the affirmation that I use for Spirit Step 1. I think it really embodies the action of the step because we can actually work Step 1 every time we relax and let go of unmanageable thoughts and emotions. And we make this step an action step by doing this. It's not just a decision step. So we are powerless over our thoughts and emotions. They are unmanageable. And every time we have a thought and we choose to let it go and relax into the meditation, into the moment, we are working step one. This can be a very powerful perspective and a different approach that you can use to look at the steps as we work them through meditation. And now it's time to begin our meditation. So in the video and right below the video will be a link to do the Spirit Step 1 meditation.